And we do have on the line with us Caleb Maupin, and we have had Caleb various times now on La Voz Latina, and we really think it is a great pleasure and honor. Caleb, welcome to La Voz Latina once more.
Hi, how are you?
Okay, very good. And Caleb, let's go to the point here. Very, in my opinion, very important conference was held last week in Texas, Austin, Texas, by the Center for Political Innovation, a group which you are, I believe you're the leader or one of the leaders of it. Could you please tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. Well, it's a think tank dedicated to moving toward a socialist future in the United States, putting forward policy solutions, challenging the prevailing narrative, and opposing imperialism. And we've had a lot of meetups around the country. We've done private events before, but this was the first time we ever had a public conference. And it was a smashing success. There wasn't an empty seat in there. The hotel, really nice hotel, was at capacity. And we had some, main big name speakers. We had Jackson Hinkle, the streamer. We had Haas, the leader of the infrared community. We had Samira Khan, Miss New Jersey 2015. Myself, I spoke, as did Peter Coffin, the podcaster, along with the Astronaut Cowboy. They've got a popular podcast. And we received quite a few great international greetings. George Galloway, the former member of British Parliament, sent us a greeting. Max Blumenthal, the great journalist, sent us a briefing. Tara Reid, who's a survivor of sexual assault at the hands of President Joe Biden. She was one of his staffers in the 1990s. She sent us a video message and greeting. We also received a video message and greeting from Jyoti Brar, a leader of the Communist Party of Great Britain, Marxist-Leninist, and from Chris Halali, who was a candidate for the U.S. Congress in Vermont on the communist ticket, got about 10% of the vote in Vermont. So it was kind of an all-star cast. We focused a lot on the Ukraine crisis, but we also touched on the situation in Latin America with the attacks on Venezuela. We talked about Alex Saab. We had David Cedillo, a young man who's an organizer in Texas who just got back from Nicaragua and reported on what the delegation there saw, what the Sandinistas have achieved. And it was quite an event. Security was very tight. We received quite a few threats. One of the local organizations there that calls themselves the Red Guards of Austin, they basically put out a call to attack the conference, accusing us of being fascists. And they sent a few of their people in to try and disrupt, but we had very good security and got them right out of there before our speakers even arrived. So that was quite an interesting event, and we've gotten quite a bit of buzz on the internet. Just the photograph of the opening ceremony where we unfurled the flag of the Soviet Union and the American flag, as well as the flag of the Donetsk People's Republic and the Z, which is a symbol now associated with supporting Russia's military intervention in Ukraine. That image has gone viral, and it's all over the internet. People are saying, what is this? There was a pro-Russian conference that took place in Austin, Texas. How can this be? We've had fact-checking agencies look into whether or not the photograph is real, which I find to be quite funny. And the website, I believe it's called trutherfiction.com, actually investigated, the image. So that was pretty wild. And we expect the video to be up shortly. It's generated quite a bit of attention locally. A lot of local bloggers were there. A lot of these Twitch streamers about something who talk about socialism are already talking about it, even though the video is not available. There's been some videos that people filmed with their phones that have leaked. People had video of Haas in his remarks talking about how he doesn't consider himself to be part of the left anymore because the left has betrayed the working class. We also have, there's video of the closing ceremony where towards the end, it was almost midnight by the time we ended the conference. It went all afternoon and all evening. At the end, when the people with the American flag and the Soviet flag walked out, that video has also been leaked. But we got some very professional video coming along. A lot of people are curious about what this conference is like. The talk will be up online pretty soon. I'd say it was a successful weekend in Austin, Texas. I just got back to New York. The team feels very, very good about it, and we're looking to do it in another city. We're taking the show on the road. People need to hear anti-imperialism and socialism.
Fantastic. And we're going to ask you about your 4 points, which define the CPI, Center for Political Organization, and also about the ideology. But before we go there, and still staying with the conference and the physical aspect and the views, two things which I think shock people is A, you have an American flag up there, and B, you have a picture of a huge, monstrous, beautiful picture of Abraham Lincoln. I would like you to define why you had that. And I should say this before you do, though. In Ecuador, in Mexico, in Puerto Rico, in Uruguay, in Argentina, even in Colombia, if you are a socialist, a revolutionary, a Marxist, a communist, you wave the flag of your country, and also you even talk in a proud way of the founders, the original founders, and historical leaders of your country 100 or 200 years ago, who not necessarily were Marxists, but helped to found your country. So in any case, can you tell us about why the flag was there and why there was a picture of Lincoln?
Well, the picture of Lincoln was actually one of the most exciting surprises. After I sent the team to Austin about a month ago, someone who's a fan of my YouTube channel reached out, and she's a Latina construction worker, and she has been a huge fan of the channel for a long time, and she's also a visual artist, or hobby is visual artist, and she said, is there anything she could make for our conference, to make our conference show? So my good friend Keaton Mansfield, who's the leader of our outreach team, he's one of our John Brown volunteers, he pulled up this old picture from 1938 when the Communist Party USA had their national convention in New York City in Madison Square Garden, and there was this big, head of Abraham Lincoln. And he said, well, maybe you can make something like this for our conference. And she said, oh, I can do that for sure. And she kept sending us updates on it, and about a week before the conference, there was an 8-foot tall image of Abraham Lincoln that was completed, eyebrows, everything. It's a beautiful, profile sculpture that was made. So she made it for us. So that's what we had at the front of the room. And that was, of course, in homage to the fact that Abraham Lincoln was supported by Karl Marx. He led the Second American Revolution to abolish slavery. He had a communist general in his army named August Willich. And the idea was that, we are the continuers of these revolutionary traditions of U.S. society, from the abolitionists to the suffragists, to the people who built the labor movement. That was the idea. So that's why we did that. And as far as the American flag, that is the flag of the country. And, we know this country has very ugly history and origin. This country is wrapped up in the global imperialist system. However, we need to communicate to working people in this country. We don't want to make their lives worse. We want to make their lives better. We do not love the government. We do not love the capitalist system. We don't love the history of colonialism and racism. But we love the people, and we love the country, and we want to make the country better. And breaking free from imperialism and moving towards socialism and fighting for the working class will make a better country. So that's why we've made a point of having the American flag. I will add, we began with the Center for Political Innovation's Pledge of Unity. And the Pledge of Unity is actually, we took it from the World Democratic Youth Federation. The World Democratic Youth Federation had this beautiful pledge that they put together after the end of the Second World War, and we adjusted it so it could be for people of all ages. It's not youth, but we place the word youth with people. But it's this pledge calling for the unity of all people, all races, all nationalities, all beliefs, to eliminate all traces of fascism from the earth, to eliminate wants and enforce idleness, to build a just and lasting peace. We took that pledge that came from the World Democratic Youth Federation. That's how we begin all of our meetings, mind you. Every Saturday Zoom call, every conference we have opens with the Pledge of Unity. So we opened with the Pledge of Unity, and that was followed by the Internationale. And during the Internationale, the American flag and the Soviet flag marched in together. And then that was followed by the Star-Spangled Banner. When the Star-Spangled Banner began, the person holding the Soviet flag and the person holding the American flag joined hands, symbolizing peace and our hope for peace between the United States and the former countries of the Soviet Union. And then, as the Star-Spangled Banner continues, one of our members held up a Z in support of the denazification operation Russia is carrying out right now in Ukraine. And a couple of our members ran to the front of the stage with the Donetsk People's Republic flag. The flag of the people of the eastern regions of Ukraine who have been attacked and shelled and bombed and are fighting for their independence against the U.S.-backed NATO government. And a lot of people were crying in the audience. There were a lot of local Russians who came, who live in Austin, who were just facing this barrage of anti-Russian propaganda, and many of them burst into tears during our opening ceremony. It was a very, very emotional moment. A number of people took me aside. There were some older communists there, and they said, no one has talked like this since Gus Hall was around. This is what needs to happen in America, Caleb. This is what we've been waiting for all this time. So it was quite an emotional weekend. A a lot of emotional speeches. There was some great music that was played. Towards the end of the conference, a young Muslim youth who was a Shia Muslim from the Muslim community got up and talked about police brutality and anti-Islamist bigotry and Iran and the history of Shia Islam and Imam Hussein. It was a powerful, powerful meeting. Speech after speech, music, audience chanting. I mean, it was really, really something special. And I'm hoping that video can be out soon so people can see just the atmosphere in the room. It was quite dynamic and powerful.
It's fantastic, Caleb Maupin, and I would just like to make an observation. That is, for example, I was a member of the Marxist organization, Marxist-Leninist Puerto Rican Socialist Party in Puerto Rico back in the 1970s and 80s. And the best communist in that organization, Caleb, was a Christian, a devout Catholic, okay? And he will go to Mass on Sundays and have all his religious observations and rituals and definitely was a Christian, and he was the best communist. And I think one of the things that in the United States, for example, these positions, which apparently are being taken by the CPI, Center for Political Innovation, go in that line in the sense that they observe that a person, there's no contradiction between being a communist and being a Christian, and unfortunately in the rest of these so-called Marxist organizations, the RCP, Workers' World, or whatever is around the Socialist Workers' Party, you don't find one single Christian. In fact, you may find one former worker, member of the working class, but you don't find any workers either. And whereas with this type of a political and social view, I do believe that the CPI is hitting it right on the nail, Caleb.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, I mean, we didn't have a minister who could be there, unfortunately. We wanted to find a local pastor who could give maybe a prayer or an invocation, but we did not find someone who would do that and would be appropriate. I did quote the Bible a little bit in my closing remarks that I gave in the evening. And we're not hostile to people of religion. I would say one of the nice moments was I was going over what the Center for Political Innovation offers in my closing speech, and I said that we offer a tolerance for political diversity. And I said that we are open to anyone who can unify around our program. And then I pointed to two of our members who are both 18 years old. One of them is named Lily Goldflang. She's Jewish, she's transgender, and she's from the suburbs of Atlanta. And another one of our members, Keaton Mansfield, and he is from a conservative family. He's a very devout conservative Roman Catholic, went to seminary school, and he is also from rural Illinois, and he's from a farming background. And I said, these are two people that wouldn't even speak to each other if it wasn't for this organization. Here they are, working together on the same goals. They may not agree about gay marriage, they may not agree about abortion, but they agree that we need to break out of imperialism. They agree with our economic program. They agree that we need to get to the broad masses of Americans, get them to understand their enemies on Moscow, their enemies on Wall Street. And when I said that, the two of them actually kind of hugged, which was kind of neat, which I didn't. I asked them afterwards, I said, did you guys plan that? And they said, no, it was just kind of spontaneous. They hugged. But the audience applauded, and people really got that, because that's something you don't see. Right now, the ruling class is trying to mobilize a culture war. They want to play conservatives against liberals, red states against blue states, and it's a plot to make all working people poor. It's a plot to deepen the divisions in U.S. society, to further their agenda of imperialism and austerity. And we were pushing back against that, and part of that means letting people do themselves. And I will say, widely people accuse us of being white supremacists or white nationalists. This was a very multinational crowd. Many Latinos in the audience. The Lincoln was made by Latinos. David Cedillo, who went to Nicaragua and gave his report, announced that he's planning to run for city council in San Angelo, Texas, on a socialist platform. And got quite a bit of applause in that announcement. We had a Muslim speaker. There were several African Americans who were in attendance, and it was very, very multinational and multiracial, and multi-religious. And it was showing that if we break out of this, this synthetic left mentality, we can get real work done, and we can build the kind of community that is needed to resist and to strengthen and embolden working people all throughout the United States.
Okay, and moving towards the end now, Caleb Maupin, the situation in the invasion of Russia into Ukraine is defined by many as a violation of Ukraine's independence and so on. Yet historically, Ukraine and Russia have been one. It's sort of like saying, recognizing that Mexico was the owner of about 1/3 of the United States. Since the formation of the United States, pretty much, Texas has been part of the United States. And if there were to be some type of a move by Texas to move away, it will provoke among the large majority of the United States a sense that no, Texas should remain with the at least the continent of 48 states. And I believe this is the way that people see it. Whether or not that's right or wrong, maybe Texas does have the right to be independent, but it definitely is not a different culture or different language. And I think that's the way that most Russians see Ukraine as part of the same culture for many hundreds of years.
Sure. I mean, I think that Russia recognizes the right of Ukraine to be an independent country. What they don't recognize is the right of the United States to use Ukraine as a base area to threaten Russia. I think that's the issue. And that, Ukraine is a, sovereign country and was an independent country until 2014, when the United States overthrew the elected president and installed a fanatically anti-Russian leader in Ukraine. And at that point, the people in the eastern regions of Ukraine, in Donbass, which historically wasn't part of Ukraine until the time of the Soviet Union. It's a very complicated history there. The people in the Donbass regions declared independence from Ukraine. And then a year later there was the Minsk Agreement, which was supposed to de-escalate conflict and bring the eastern regions back into the Ukrainian government. The idea was their language, their Russian language, would be respected, and this conflict, the violence would be de-escalated. They would be brought back into the Ukrainian society. But since 2015, the Minsk Accords haven't been implemented. And instead, what's happened is the U.S.-backed government has acquired all kinds of weapons from the United States. CIA people have been there training paramilitary forces and such, and they've been bombing and shelling the Donbass regions. 14,000 people have died. And actually some estimates say the number may be much higher, more like 16,000 people. They've been bombing. The Kiev government has purchased drones from Turkey and carried out drone strikes. There's been a food blockade. And this has gone on for year after year after year. 7 years since the Minsk Agreement was signed. There hasn't been peace in the Donbass. There has been a relentless military campaign by the Kiev government against those eastern republics. Russia wanted the eastern republics to be reintegrated back into Ukraine. That hasn't happened. And so in response to that, in response to what looks like was an all-out attack that was coming 3 weeks ago, Russia announced, okay, in response to, it looked like Biden had given the go-ahead to Zelensky to go in and slaughter the people of the eastern regions. In response to that, Russia recognized the two independent republics, the Republic of Donetsk and the Republic of Lugansk, and moved their military in to protect them, and then moved their military further into Ukraine to break apart the Ukrainian military that has been murdering these people. And Russia has some pretty basic demands. They want recognition of the independence of the Russian-speaking peoples of the eastern regions. And on top of that, they want, Ukraine to pledge that they won't join the NATO alliance, and there won't be yet another NATO country right on Russia's border. And if Ukraine will agree to that, this war will stop. Unfortunately, it looks like the United States doesn't want this war to stop. The United States basically is hoping that they can hurt Russia and get Russia bogged down in a long-term military intervention. They want to do basically what was done to the Soviet Union in Afghanistan, provoke a military intervention that will then, result in a long-term commitment of bodies and resources and personnel and bog down and hurt Russia. I think Russia knows that's what the United States wants to do, and their goal is to get in there and get out as quickly as possible. But they've been sitting back and letting the United States pile weapons into Ukraine for a long time. They've been sitting back and letting the people of the eastern regions get bombed and shelled and attacked. And I think that, enough is enough. And it's gotten to the point that they said, no, we're going to stop this. We're going to break apart this Ukrainian military. And it's important to point out that, Putin is not a communist. He's from the United Russia Party. He very much rejects Marxism and such. But the Communist Party is one of the most enthusiastic supporters of this intervention. And I think it's fair to say that if the Communist Party of the Russian Federation were in power, this probably would have happened years ago, if not immediately in 2014 in response to the U.S. backed coup. And the Communist Party are the most patriotic and the most militant and outspoken supporters of this intervention, the bill to recognize the Donetsk and Lugansk republics in the Duma, the Russian State Duma, was put forward by the Communist Party. So I think a lot of leftists in the United States don't get this, but the leftists around the world get it. In Venezuela, they get it. The economic freedom fighters in South Africa, they get it. Nicaragua gets it. The communists of India, they get it. Go around the world. Many communists understand what's going on here, and that this is Russia responding to years of NATO aggression and threats. However, if you turn on American mainstream TV, you get the idea that this is out of the blue. Putin was having a bad day and said, "I want to kill some Ukrainians." That's not the situation by any means, and I continue to beat that drum because people just don't understand the reality of what's taking place there.
And finally, Caleb, we've seen all these pictures, very sad, the way the media depicts it, and here the numbers, up to 2.5 million refugees leaving Ukraine. However, recently I've seen some reports, a little bit more objective, that say that half or more than half of these refugees are going into Russia, that they don't want to go into Europe. Where they want to go is Russia, and I don't know if that's true, but it would make sense since about half the population in Ukraine is of Russian descent.
Sure. Yeah, since the beginning of the crisis and the instability in Ukraine in 2014, there's been a huge flow of immigration to Russia. And it's not just people in the eastern regions, and especially in the last 3 weeks, there's been all kinds of people from Donbass, just piling onto buses and going into Russia. But on top of that, there has also, there have been a number of people who live in western Ukraine and who are members of the Communist Party, members of the Party of Regions, which is a more conservative party, but it's more of a sympathetic to Russia, members of the Progressive Socialist Party, who basically aren't able to live in their country anymore. We're being told Ukraine is a democracy, but that's not the reality. In Ukraine, if you post something on your social media in support of Russia, you can go to jail. If you are a Russian speaker and you're caught speaking your native language in a park or in a public space, you can be given a ticket and fined. And many people in Ukraine feel like Ukraine is no longer their home. And many of them, and yes, millions, have gone to Russia since 2014. That is a reality. And of course, U.S. mainstream media is covering that up because it doesn't fit their narrative.
Caleb Maupin, head of the Center for Political Innovation and also a reporter, a journalist with RT News. Thank you so much, Caleb.
Sure. Glad to be on. Glad we could have a chat.
Warm embrace.